As I am making 4 smaller prosthetics, I decided to split on larger tile into 4 sections to save on space. I used a chopstick and a Sharpie to map out my 4 equal-ish sections. To start off, I create a little base using air-dry clay and press the resin pieces I want into it to get a general shape. I then roll out a sausage of NSP clay and wrap it around the rough shape I have just created, blending it down a little so it stays in place. I add a little more clay around the edges so I can later blend and smooth everything to a smooth/seamless texture. Excess clay and start to finalize the shape I want. I aim to get this as thin as possible without creating any unwanted holes in the clay. I then add small balls of clay to create lumps that will later be a crystal under the skin coming to the surface, blending it till it looks natural on the clay/woolly skin. I then remove the crystals so I can use my fingers to pinch and thin out the edges of the open wound. Now the edges are thinner, I take a silicone tool and press the clay into the contours of the resin pieces. Using a silicone tool, I then add some texture inside. Now using baby powder and a fluffy brush, I brush it all over the sculpt, as this will help the clay come off when I start to texture it with a wire tool. Using the wire tool, I scratch the sculpt all over, going in one direction and then go back round, repeating this, but in the opposite direction. Once happy, I then brush all the extra clay away with a firm brush. To prepare the sculpt for molding, I scoop out the air-dry clay I used as a base. I want the bottom of the wound to be as smooth and flat as possible so it is easier to glue the crystals on later. To make the underskin lumps, I started by taking a chunk of NSP clay and flattening it onto the tile. I then took my thumb and spread it out until it was rough the size and shape I wanted. Next, I took one of my wooden sculpting tools and flattened it out more with firmer pressure. Once happy, I used my loop tool to shave off some of the excess clay. I then used the same technique of blending various sizes of clay balls into the clay base until they are all consistently blended in. I decided to add a smaller open wound, so I cut a little out of the base and blended the edges onto one of the smaller crystals. To add some extra texture, I took a needle-style tool and scraped up some of the clay to make it look like ripped/broken skin. On this occasion, I forgot to put my baby powder down before taking my war tool to the sculpt, so when I did remember to add it, unfortunately all it did was fill in the scratches I had just made. To save on time, I decided to make my cutting edges off camera.